There we go. Yeah, and you're already live. So, yeah, not a problem. That's why I said it was weird when I first did it too. So, we're missing Reed and Michael, or is that? And Kaylee.
Thank you.
So we're missing 3 of us.
Can you guys hear me? It says my mic's not working.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
I don't know if your mic's muted. Oh, oh, okay. It might be on my end then. Hold on.
Is that better? No. You can still hear me though, Kira? Okay. I'll say the opening prayer if you want me to. Nope.
Hold on. There we go. It's up to you. You're the leader.
Okay. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for the many blessings that Thou hast given us. We're grateful for this opportunity to meet together again as a group, and pray that Thou would help our meeting to go smoothly, and pray that we will be able to discuss the case and share our feelings and understand one another. We're grateful for this opportunity to learn in this environment, and pray that Thou would bless us in our studies and our efforts to be able to accomplish all that we need to. We love Thee so much and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. If we're going straight for the end, I chose Sonia over Rena, although it really comes down to experience, I guess. From what I got from the case, Rena was doing great. She was okay at it, and she was getting better. But I got the feeling that he wanted somebody who could just go in, without the need of a lot of help and a lot of support. And I think Sonia, even though her one main weakness is that she didn't like to travel or didn't want to travel, she kind of made up for it in a lot of other ways. So that's who I would pick.
I was torn between Rena and Sonia. I almost picked Sonia, but I went with Rena just because she worked there, pretty much. Because I felt like if Stephen had picked Sonia, I feel like it would have driven Rena away, because I felt like they were almost everything was equal with them to me. And so just looking at it from that standpoint, I felt like he had a good candidate already that was working there and that understood what was going on, and that with a little bit of just guidance and trust, I kind of brought the speed of trust into it, and how if he just showed that confidence in her, that it would really bring her up to speed and give her the confidence to move forward and to lead the team. So I picked Rena.
I actually kind of went a different direction there, and I chose Seth, who was kind of the outside candidate, kind of the outlier there. I chose him because he kind of met every single criteria that Stephen was looking for in a candidate. He had worked at a big firm. He had star status. He had been rated on the II list as a runner-up, and so and he was willing to move, and he had good reputations with his clients. So that's why I picked him over everyone else. I know there was the unknown of, what were his real motivations behind wanting to make a switch and stuff like that. But I figured that's the thing to me. If he wants to come, let him come,
Yeah, I thought he had really good qualities as well. I think my main argument, sorry, it's been like many days since I did this. I need to look over a little bit. Was that I just felt like it was weird. And Stephen mentioned how the headhunter had not mentioned him. And so I just felt like there was just kind of maybe a little bit too much uncertainty around him to pick him. But like you said, I mean, everything else made total sense. So
me, the reason I didn't pick him was because he was super eager to please, and I don't think, at least in my impressions, I mean that's a good quality to have, but I think he was looking for somebody to kind of just take the reins with that aspect. And I thought the case also said that he didn't think his writing or expressive skills fit the job exactly. I think that was like one of the bad qualities that he put there. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, it's been almost a week since I did this whole case study anyways too, so don't feel bad. But that's why I ended up not choosing him. Yeah, other than that, you're right. I mean, I think he would be perfect for it.
Well, I think the kind of thing is most of them are good for the position. It's just kind of picking who would be your preference, sort of thing.
Yeah, which negative do you like, can you put up with? Yeah, basically.
Hey, sorry I'm late. I was on another video call for my other class.
Oh, fun.
So I'm like, all right, we'll just talk on this all night. You guys talk at all about, I honestly, like, going through all those candidates, it was really moot to me because he needed to give the Rena chick a fair chance. She's already in the culture. She's already doing the job. She was working with the Peter guy and probably got a lot of, the inside intel to what he was doing. And so, yes, you've got this big case coming up, but kind of going back to the book that we're, reading for this class, you got to give the person that deserves it a chance, and maybe they'll come through, even though he's got that pressure to find the next star. Well, you've got all these programs set up internally that you're supposed to be developing the stars, and then you're not going to trust that system that, you're developing the next star, and she's in the position right now. You got to give her a fair chance instead of just try and push her out the door because of some pressure of a deal.
No, I was ultimately torn too, because they foster a culture of hiring within. Like it seems weird that he's been in this culture, he knows the culture, so his first I guess solution is to go to a headhunter to find outside people. Like I think the case, even starting out, he chose the wrong answer. So
right, yeah, he should have given him a raise.
yeah, or something.
Well, my big thing with Rena is my major concern with her was that from his supervisor, so whoever his boss was, and then from other senior analysts, or the research department, they were like, when are you going to hire somebody who's actually the person? And so they didn't have much confidence in Rena already. And I understand he mentioned that his boss was kind of an old dog and didn't really appreciate the training program that they kind of had going on. So it's kind of tough to go from that. But I mean, ultimately, my big concern was the other researchers and analysts kind of didn't have that faith that she was going to be the final pick. And so to me, that's kind of a nail in the coffin for picking Rena.
I agree with that. That's ultimately why I didn't choose her, was because I feel like she didn't know enough, and maybe with time and training, she would be eventually, but what he needs right off the bat, she just doesn't quite have the
Yeah.
qualifications or knowledge for, and sadly, that's not something you can you just have innately. That requires time, and yeah, I agree with that.
Well, he should have just given the raise in the first place, right? I'm like reading through it. I'm like, why didn't you retain him? Like all of the information that I got to replace somebody and their knowledge, it's like 40 to 60% of their annual salary to replace them, as far as the hiring process, paying the head hunter, all of that thing. So he already knew that he could have replaced that, that what he was bringing in was going to, he could have definitely given him a raise, and then knowing to replace him, it's going to cost me money too. So why don't you just, I almost think that there was almost an underlying issue. Why was he looking for a new job if that's the culture of the business, that it doesn't, of the firm, that people don't leave? So why is he leaving? I think that there was something kind of underlying, something happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I felt like. Why wasn't that explored more?
I agree. It seemed like it was like that was an option, and then the next sentence he was gone, and it didn't really explain what happened.
Yeah, I found it kind of weird that it really wasn't an option to just keep Peter there. I vaguely remember something about Peter just wanting the money, like that was why he left. It was just not practical, according to Steven's eyes, for whatever reason, to just keep giving Peter raises and raises and raises. But my memory may be faulty on that. I think ultimately that was why he left.
I know it had a lot of information in that case study. I was reading it going, this is a lot more about investment banking that I've ever wanted to know in my life about researching stuff. But I guess I said that last time about rowing, so I guess it's taking me out of my comfort zone.
Learning what you don't want to do with your life, so that's good, right?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Harvard Business School, for your case studies.
Totally. I feel like, let's see, Kira asked about what we thought about David. I thought he seemed like a really good fit. I maybe would have almost picked him, but the fact that it sounded like he was not interested in learning new technology or learning a new culture. And so I felt like I hated saying no to him just because he was old, because that's basically what my reason was. But it just seemed like he was not the right fit because of that, kind of his attitude toward that.
The reason I didn't pick him was, even though he had these great credentials and was very quick-witted in his youth, I know in the case it said, as he got older, that precision started to wane a lot. And if this is a position he wants to fill long-term, ultimately I wouldn't go with David for that reason. I need somebody who's willing to keep that pace that we need, or even improve that pace, not somebody who's declining.
Yeah.
A question that I have for you guys, because I actually was helping my boss. She was out of town, and I was helping her interview for a front office position, like an office manager. and we interviewed so many people, and they started to kind of blend together. But one thing that I almost wondered, and I'm going to pose it to you guys, like, at what point, where's the line between, like, as far as the guy being too old or things of that nature, where does discrimination come into play? Is that in the hiring process that, you have to not consider, that the mom, she's got 2 kids, but it does come into play when you are trying to hire somebody, if they're going to be available, they're going to be what you need, and if he's not going to, be able to technology. So I guess where does the line is between finding the best candidate and discrimination?
Sorry, you got kind of garbled there for me. I don't know if you did for anybody else.
No, I understood it. It's because the sound's coming out of Michael's speakers, and then Michael's mic is picking it up and then sending it back. It's looping. Going on. I understood your.
Oh, you're muted. There you go.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, no. Basically, it was your sound was coming out of Mike's speakers, and then Mike's mic was picking it up, and it was looping back and forth. That was what the garbled was.
Didn't understand any of that.
AJ says.
So, anyways, I understand your question or your statement. For me, you're right. It's very difficult because more and more people create laws, to keep segmenting out. There's certain things you can and can't do as employers. And there were a couple of approaches that I saw, and obviously this isn't related to the case, but it goes along with that point. A lot of employers just stop asking for certain things, like, race and age and sex, because they don't want that lawsuit of oh, you didn't hire me because I'm white, or whatever the case may be. You didn't hire me because I'm old. So it's very tough to get around those laws. And you're right. And it's not that the employer may or may not discriminate. Like, I don't think anybody innately wants to discriminate against people, especially successful business owners. Like, that can ultimately destroy your business. This person doesn't serve disabled people. Like, that's detrimental to a business. Why would a business want that?
Right.
So I think people have just started to get creative with the hiring process, and that's one way that I know that a lot of businesses do it.
Okay.
Interesting.
What do you guys think as far as the line between discrimination and finding the right candidate?
I feel like it's so gray sometimes, because, like, with David, it wasn't because he was old that they didn't want him. It was because he wasn't that I didn't want him. It was because he wasn't he didn't love, using new technology and learning new ways to do things. But the reason he didn't love those things is because he's old. And so it's like that's so tricky. I just think it's always a gray area, and it's a fine line. And I think anybody could interpret anything as discrimination.
Yeah.
No matter what you do.
Right.
But I'm not in that position.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, that's one of the problems that I put, because coming up with 8 to 10 problems is sometimes hard, because it's almost like you're repeating yourself. So that's just one thing that, like, the chick that was the mom, her name escapes me. But she said, how can I talk to a female there? Are they successful? So I thought that was kind of an interesting question that maybe they threw in there to possibly put the question of discrimination in the whole hiring process.
Definitely.
So
yeah, same thing with her. It was like, it wasn't because she was a mom, it was because she didn't want to travel, but she didn't want to travel because she was a mom.
She's a mom. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely hard. Okay, so I assume that that's probably a problem with all employers.
Yeah.
Let's see, Kira's asking, do you think Rena was discriminated against as well?
Yeah, not really. I don't think so. If you don't have the knowledge, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. if you can't do the job, it doesn't matter to me, at least. So I don't think she was. I think she's given the opportunity to continue to prove herself, and that I don't think that's discriminatory. But no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he was hesitant, probably because of the reasons that you mentioned. That he's under. I put one of the problems that he's under a lot of pressure with that deal. So I think a lot of his decisions from upper management definitely swayed his decision. How is it looping? I can hear it. Yeah. I don't know why
Mike, mute your microphone. Okay, now try it.
Okay. Oh, yep, there you go. I think that he had a lot of pressure from upper management to get a quick fix. And I know that a lot of the time, if you try and get a quick fix like this, it's almost too good to be true most of the time. That you think that you found this perfect candidate, but really they are awful when they work with the team. And so then you're stuck in a month or two looking for somebody else, where that's why I kind of went more with Rena, that she's there. You got to give her a chance.
I agree.
That's just kind of what I thought. But I might be speaking from personal experience, because I was an office manager, and my boss just looked at me one day and said, "You should do marketing." I'm like, okay. So, I mean, that might be why I'm a little biased, because from hiring from within. But I mean, I think that she said that I'm doing a good job. So I think that if you give somebody a chance,
I agree.
Well, and you're not wrong, because the whole firm has these training situations set up, and what they call it, a revolving door, or an open door corporate policy, and they pride themselves on having an extremely low turnover rate for that reason. So I think you're spot on with what you're saying. It just boggles my mind that Stephen would even take this outside hiring route to kind of begin with. It kind of taints the whole case, I guess. Right off the bat, it's hard to make a judgment, because all of these people have pros and cons. There's no one perfect candidate, and I think that's ultimately what we have to decide, or I don't know if we're supposed to agree on it by the end of the case or whatever, but it's very difficult, and none of us are going to see eye to eye on what we deem a con to be like what is traveling really a big deal to you. It's not really a big deal to me, ergo one of the candidates looks better than the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So ultimately putting a value on everybody's negatives is going to be very difficult. And if we have to agree, this is going to be difficult.
Right. Well, with the handout that she gave us, and she posted a video too on human capital.
Yeah.
I think that really, when we come down to it, it needs to be someone that has I think at the top was the general human capital. So I guess that would maybe help us decide on who would fit that category, and then maybe see if we can agree on that person.
I think the one thing that would change my mind from Sophia to Rena is that I'd be afraid if I chose Sophia, that Rena would ultimately have this big resentment for the company, I guess, if that makes sense, because I would be kind of hurt too. That would irritate me a lot, especially if I've been training and doing well, and it's other people's opinions, really, because that's what they are. They're opinions at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that would bug me, and I can totally see it. Really, I was so torn between Rena and Sophia, so you can sway me either way at this point, but I do understand that need for having that human capital and being a priority, because you do want to foster and develop a culture, and that's what they want to do. They want to hire within. And I think if Stephen takes this route of hiring an outside source, he's tainting that. Somebody who gets hired and starts working up the ranks could suddenly just be replaced by somebody from the outside, and I don't like that idea. I really don't. That is something I would be worried about as an employee there.
Right.
So.
I agree. And I just had a hard time finding what the negatives really were about Rena. I went through the whole thing, and the worst thing it said about her was she still sometimes relies on the advice of the more senior analysts in the technology group, but he said that she has made some improvements and he's happy with her work overall. The worst thing he could say is that some of the sales force thinks she has to be more assertive when she presents her reports. But others have commented that she's very knowledgeable about the industry. So I'm like, if that's the worst thing about her and she already works there, then it just, I don't know, it just made sense to me to pick her.
Right. Well, and I remember, I remember reading something that, now I totally forgot what I was going to say. But as far as her, just with some more experience, I think that she would, be great. Just right. With the, just given a chance. Really, if you want somebody to be assertive, the best way to help them do that is to give them a chance to be
give
assertive.
them opportunities to do it.
Mm-hmm. And so, if you want her to be more assertive, then give her the chance to be assertive instead of trying to, sweep the rug out from under her and say, hey, you've got this for the next, little bit till I replace you. Then if you're always looking over your shoulder, no, you're not going to be assertive because you're going to be afraid that you're just, going to be replaced anyway.
Was that something he had told Rena? Was that he was looking to replace her? Does anybody know? For sure.
I gathered from the first paragraph, that it's talked about him convincing her to stay. That was his backup plan. So I'd almost lead you to believe that he was like, hey, if you stay and he leaves, you get his position. And then she's thinking, you're looking for somebody. Have you hired someone yet? So it almost, there's some resentment there. So I think there was something maybe said, hey, if you stay on and don't move on with Peter, you'll have his position. That's what
I remember reading something that said when he talked to her, he said, I know I promised you that I would only hire someone else if I found someone more senior that he liked better. And so I do feel like he kind of just was back and forth on her with that.
Yeah.
So one of the major points I think that we're kind of missing here about why he's kind of passing over Rena for this position is he mentioned multiple times with this big market, with this big account, he desperately needed somebody who was a star in the field. And, the best way to gauge who's a star is on their rankings. And it mentioned multiple times, rankings are a huge deal in the industry. Somebody who's ranked can bring in a lot more clientele, a lot more clients just because they're ranked, sort of thing. And so I see why he wouldn't promote Rena, even though they have this fostering mentality, is because it was emphasized multiple times that he needed somebody with that star power to handle such a big account. Because he even mentioned to Rena, and it mentioned in the thing that she knew that she was probably going to be replaced. Because when he went to talk to her, she mentioned, I've been meaning to talk to you. And she's like, I thought he was going to tell me he had hired somebody. And so she knew that it was kind of coming down the pipeline. So to me, it was just, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought here, but he needed to find somebody who was more senior, who had the experience to handle that larger account, because he was like, even though I'm not going to give you this big account, I'll give you a smaller, you'll still be a senior analyst, but I'm going to give you something smaller to start out with. And that way she can kind of build herself up from there.
Well, then, they say that he ended up, if he wants some big star, some big person who's going to wow their clients, Gerald may be the one he ends up picking for that specific account because he is very narcissistic and cocky and a go-getter sort of thing. But does that really fit the kind of culture that they want to build? Say they hire somebody and they end up screwing up the account anyways, then they're stuck with them anyways. I totally get what you're saying, though. I almost wonder if it would be better for them to split that account up, or that firm, give that firm to somebody else and have that one person just deal with that one large firm if it's so important. Like, does that make sense? It seems really weird that he's writing the next few years on this one task, on this one account that's coming up. Once that one task is gone, then what? Has he thought about that? Is there a plan in place? That would be my question at that point. What do I do then once that account's come and gone, or
One thing that I kind of, when I was doing research about kind of the pressure that he was getting to do an outside hire to find that star, a quote that I found, it says, the practice of hiring folks based off of previous performance and achievement is probably the gold standard for most industry. However, it's more important to hire based on potential for success in the specific job they're interviewing for. Reason being, not all skills and accomplishments can be translated directly from old to new contexts. So when it's talking about all these senior analysts and all these junior analysts, I remember reading that, like, the success of the team, like their pay structure was based off of the success of the team. So saying that Peter was the star, you never know that it was not his team that was really helping him do that. And that's why, maybe Rena saw that and that's why she stayed. I don't know. That maybe she knew she was doing all the work. Who knows?
True. That's a good point I hadn't really thought of, but I know it did say that in the human capital thing about, I think it was that where I read it, about how it doesn't always transfer being a star at one industry or in one area.
one firm to another.
Right, because it could be the sum of all the parts that's leading to, him being that star analysis. Yes, it stinks that he's the only one in that semiconductor or whatever industry. What is that? What it was called?
Yeah.
But maybe that's a good learning opportunity for that firm, that they shouldn't have just had one person in that industry if they have this big, huge client coming down the line. So that could be a good learning opportunity for them.
Yeah, and I don't think anything Stephen could have really have Peter stay, because it was pretty quick to have him leave. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's kind of why I think that maybe it wasn't something just all about the money, that maybe something happened in that culture that's leading to maybe those opinions of Rena because she worked with Peter. It seems like there's something underlying that we're not getting that happened.
Yeah.
So if we have to, she asked another question. Let's see. Yeah, I've already talked about that. I think so, but that a permanent position. But I know that there's, definitely arguments for and against. But I'm biased, so personally. So
everybody's biased. Everybody has their own bias.
We all have our own opinions.
Yeah.
I still vote Rena. I don't know. I don't know if he really needed a star as much as his boss and a couple others were making him think he did. I don't know. I think they put him in charge of hiring, and I think that he can do what he wants, and
he's a big boy.
They can deal with it. I really think Rena would flourish based on the information we've been given, but
it's hard to make a choice. It really is.
I'm just not sold on Rena because, I believe that she can flourish, but I just think that she needs more time, and I think either more time as a junior analyst underneath somebody else, one of the older dogs who might come in and help her get to that status, or just giving her a smaller account so that she can handle it better and kind of make her way up. I think that would be a better path for her than to just kind of throw her into the sharks in the deep end, and force her into a situation where she has too much pressure on her, and it just breaks her, because she's not a lot of the researchers and the big boss, they don't really have that faith in her, so they aren't necessarily going to tolerate her for too long if she's not producing results. And so I think it's a little too risky to kind of throw her in right there, right then. I think she needs a little bit more time to develop. Like I said, my top two choices were Seth and Sonia, and I would say Seth just kind of beats out Sonia, just because I think his go-getter attitude, and I think he would fit in really well with their culture, even though he's kind of more of a competitive guy. I think with the help of the other senior analysts, they kind of help him, mold him into that team mentality and help him out. And he's already got the star status, he's already listed on the ratings and stuff like that. And to me personally, he has the fewest drawbacks in terms of, Sonia, it's questionable whether they can get her to travel enough, and and stuff like that, and whether she'll be able to transition onto the bigger platform. Everyone thinks that she will, but you never know. It's kind of that unknown factor.
So I mean, with the team culture that we have, I mean, are we putting too much weight on that star? Is what I'm going more with.
We're supposed to not just incorporate the case. We're supposed to incorporate the what was the other one, the human capital, that one-page thing we're supposed to read.
Yeah.
We're supposed to take that into account, or to be able to take into account people's potential. And I'm leaning towards Rena right now, mainly because from hearing you guys, from what you've said, especially about the human capital and how I would feel in that position. I think ultimately that's what I have to do. I have to put myself in that position, and that coming from an outside source, I just see it as another job interview, I guess. Whereas if I'm in there and actively working towards it, and Steven doesn't really have a whole lot of negatives to say about me, it's kind of other people's opinions, I would have to choose Rena at this point. So.
I mean, I think given if she's backed up, go ahead. Go.
Oh, sorry. Here, let me.
I think that given if she knows that she's backed, you don't know what she's going to do, and if the teamwork is the culture there, then why go away from that and find your star? It would be interesting to see, how did Peter become a star? Was he part of that program that came from that maybe he had another senior that he was under and he was given the chance? I mean, there's a lot of backstory that you just don't know. And so I don't think, I know that in the book it like Covey was talking about deals that may have been lucrative but just didn't work, they stepped away from. So I don't think that big deal coming down the pipeline, you totally just derail Rena, who's put in her time, who is working with the team. You derail her by hiring some outside source that may or may not work.
I guess what it comes down to for me then, is it about the money or is it about the culture and the people?
Right. What are you trying to preserve?
I get that it's a big, hefty account, and the upper ups are kind of, really worried about it and stuff like that. And there are what ifs for every scenario. What if Seth fails it? What if Gerald does? Obviously, any one of the candidates can screw it up.
Mhm.
And worst case scenario, they screw it up. No matter who you hire, they screw it up. Then what? You're left with Rena, who's got a bad taste in her mouth about the company, doing something else, resents Steven, it got demoted, whatever, wherever she ends up within the company. And then you're stuck with this new person for however long the contract terms are. Obviously, they didn't go into detail about the contract, but I'm sure there would be some details with that, guaranteed money for screwing up.
Well, and I hadn't thought of that too. I forgot about the contract thing. So yeah, you're locked in with this person where I'm going to assume that Rena's already in a contract.
Yeah. Well, that's true too. I'm sure she's on like some kind of temporary contract. Like I've been in a couple of positions with my school district where a higher up quits, so I take their job temporarily. With all the benefits and stuff like that. But once it's not really predetermined. Sometimes it can be, obviously, but it's generally until the position gets filled, and then you go back down. But again, we have no idea. Ultimately, that's what I think we need to think about. Do we want more money, or do we want better people? And it seems like there's a common theme. I don't know if you're taking any other business classes this quarter. I'm taking, I think it's 341. We had this whole project on about would you rather have more money or no, it was which company in real life do you think fosters societal trust? And actually, it was in the reading. It was this class too. And when you think about that, it kind of humanizes these big corporations and firms, which is very hard to do. I had to think about it pretty hard to figure out which company I think furthers society in terms of not just money and wealth, but actual culture and humanizing people and not treating them as a way just to get more money. And that's what I have to base my decision on. And if I have to base my decision on that, I would choose Rena. So that's my final answer. Yeah.
So I just have a question. So you guys were talking a lot about how Rena, or how people would see their team environment kind of, see it in a negative light if they hired from an outside source. But I know it mentioned in the reading, and I kind of got this idea, is that it's very common in that industry for them to kind of poach other candidates from different firms and stuff like that, because Steven has a history of working with a headhunter. He has that headhunter on retainer, so it's not the first time that this company's hired from an outside source. It's not like all they do is promote from within. Yeah, they have that mentality, but overall, the company, and it stated this, the company wants to retain stars. They want the big people. And so it said that they're willing to pay them. And, that was one of the big things, is they're willing
to pay them. Why, ultimately, then he should just stick with Peter. Well, if Peter, if that's all their goal is, why not just give Peter whatever the heck he wants?
Well, we kind of mentioned with Peter, is Peter kind of left just like out of the blue. It wasn't like Peter kind of used his move to leverage for a higher salary or more money, or
I swear he did. I swear it was something about money, but I continue.
Well,
sorry.
He stated that he was leaving for more money, but Steven admitted that he could have made more of an attempt to keep Peter, to lure him back instead of just having him leave. But it seemed to me, from the way I was reading it, that Peter kind of had his mind set up, like, I'm kind of out of here. Like, this is not where I want to be.
Did you guys look at the salary that Kira sent?
Instead.
It's in the exhibit. I'm pulling it up right now. Apparently.
Rena she makes that. Maybe I do need to look into this investment firm thing. David, I mean, his salary RSH would be 1.5 million. He's the highest. And Rena's the lowest at 3.
Okay, in oh, you want to mute Mike?
Sorry, hold on.
Oh, you're fine.
I was looking at the salary.
Oh, in the case, in the second paragraph, it says Stephen examined how much money Peter generated for the firm and saw that he could legitimately raise Peter's compensation. Then he devised a backup plan. So it kind of sounds like this whole thing with Peter, at least for me, Stephen wanted to rearrange his team, and Peter didn't like that. And I think ultimately that's why he left, or at least that's my understanding. So yeah, you're right. It may not have been about money to begin with. Let me see their salaries.
Yeah, so sorry you couldn't hear me because my mic was mute. So ultimately, it didn't seem like it was like a pay issue, like you said.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily, oh, we didn't want to pay Peter more money. It was more of like an ideological difference where it was like, we could have paid him more money, but it just, something wasn't working out between the two sides.
Yeah.
Well, for me, like I said, that I go back to fostering a culture that I personally would want to work for. I don't like the idea of my school district hiring an outside source to replace me. And even I'm even in a union, so like that would be against our union contract, anyways. But so there's a reason those rules are in certain contracts, because it would suck for me. And being in Rena's position, that's why I would choose Rena, because I wouldn't want to be in that position. Just to be outsourced and then kind of left. Who knows when that opportunity is going to come up again for Rena, and she might feel like this is her only shot to prove herself, so she's busting her butt off, and to see all of that work just go away kind of sucks. So no, not really, not about David, no.
He's the highest paid.
Yeah, that's true. Gerald was too cocky and narcissistic, would not foster any good environment, even if he was making the biggest bucks possible. Granted, that would make the higher ups very happy, but would not foster anything good, nothing. And I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago. But yeah, no, Gerald, no, not at all.
And then Seth was the one that the headhunter didn't mention at all, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so he's the next one on the tier. So would you, I guess if we're just going down the line, would you just keep
I don't see a problem with Seth. I think he fits all the criteria except in certain areas, but I have to weigh that against Sonia's inability to travel, or that she doesn't want to travel. With Seth, he just didn't have the writing or expressive skills needed for the job, and I see that as kind of important to really any job for this kind. Rena has it, Sona has it, David and all the other ones have it, but comparing Seth to Sonia, the need for writing and expressive skills kind of is a necessity.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like the stars, and I could be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I remember it saying that Seth, this was his first year being recognized in the magazine. And I feel like his ranking wasn't super duper high, but he was on there and he was ranked, so that's better than Rena. But I just feel like of the true stars, we can't even consider any of them. And so it comes down to people who kind of, none of them is like a clear star. He would obviously be the most. Does that sound right to you guys, what I'm saying?
No, I'm reading it right here. From the sounds of it, again, without much knowledge of the industry, I get the impression that Seth and Rena are kind of in the same tier as far as knowledge. Seth has a bit more work experience, and a bit more knowledge, but I don't really see a difference between Seth and Rena. I'm skimming over the case real quick here, but what you said is kind of lining up here with what I'm reading.
And so I feel like if that's the case, I just always, and I was talking to my husband about this, he's been hiring a lot lately, and so I discussed this with him, and he just said he always, when he can, tries to hire from within. It's just so much easier for everybody, and it usually, he said, like 9 times out of 10 it turns out better for the company in the long run.
I remember the other reason. He's also switched firms a lot, and that was a big problem to Stephen. Basically, he got the runner-up ranking 2 and then left the firm, and is looking for more recognition, more opportunity. So Stephen doesn't feel Seth would stay at the firm long enough, or like once a better offer came along, Seth would immediately go and leave it. That's yeah. He says
it wasn't actually Seth has actually been with the same company for the past 15 years.
It says, I'm not switching firms lightly. I've been with Jefferson for 15 years. Yeah, I see that. But I no longer feel that Jefferson is dedicated to me. Much as possible, I'd return such dedication with an equal commitment to the firm.
So it sounds to me like, yeah, he's looking for more money, and he feels like he hasn't been appreciated where he's at. And he feels like his star status is high enough now that he can kind of pull that kind of leverage. So I understand why they're concerned, because what's going to stop him if he gets ranked even higher?
Yeah.
What's going to stop him from doing the same thing to go to another company? But I think that's just a problem you're going to have to worry about down the road, sort of thing. With him, it's like you can't guarantee whether you're going to keep any of these people.
I think he could better guarantee he would keep Rena. I honestly do.
Yeah, but with Rena, it's like, okay, if you promote her and then she doesn't make that next step, it's like, okay, you now all of a sudden have this big black mark on her. It's like, okay, we have to replace somebody. I gave her a shot, but But with her, it's not about her leaving, it's about her succeeding in the position.
Would you rather be given a shot or never have the chance to be given a shot? Which one sounds better for you personally? Whatever job or field you're in, personally, which one would you prefer?
Personally, everyone's going to prefer the shot, but we're not talking about what people would prefer. If it's what someone else would prefer, managers would be making the wrong decision every time.
Not necessarily. I'm a manager. I give people shots all the time. When they screw up, I fix it and replace it. That's a manager's job.
Yeah, but if you know you have another candidate who's going to be better for it, the person's like, oh, give me a shot, even though you kind of realize that they might have some shortcomings, and then they don't succeed, that's on you as a manager. So I think Steven's kind of looking for more of a sure thing than with Rena.
But none of these candidates are a sure thing. Absolutely none of them are.
I mean, that's part of the thing, but I mean, you're just kind of weighing who you think is going to be, more, who do you think has the highest chance of success,
Yeah.
then that's all personal opinion on everyone. So,
Mm.
Okay. So I don't know if, yeah, I don't have anything else to say on this one. I would choose Rena.
Yeah, I would too.
Me too.
Oh, so what human capital would Steven be? Oh, good question. I think relationship human capitals would be the one.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're talking about, one that's rarely portable, we're not trying to portable her. We're
Yeah.
not trying to change her anywhere. She's already where we
Yeah.
need her to be. So. As far as other thoughts, I guess the company specific, that would be, possibly bringing someone on that wanted to bring their team members with them would be somebody that would be company specific. They want to take the team members that they know and are familiar with to a different setting, so that would cost more money because you have more people that you're bringing on. If you remember, I was trying to find, wasn't there one of them that wanted to bring his team?
It seems like there was, and that they didn't want him to, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I remember, and I couldn't find it when I went to go type it up, but I thought when I was reading it said that one of them wanted to bring their team, and he was like, no, we have a great team. And then one of them didn't, and they're like, no, like I like it almost seemed like he was kind of wishy-washy on bringing the other team.
Yeah. One of them, he's like, yeah, that wouldn't be a problem, and the other guy, he was like, no.
Yeah, so I thought I read that, but I couldn't find it when I was typing my stuff up. So I'm like, well, maybe you just made that up.
I remember that too.
Okay.
I feel like it was maybe David and Gerald, but I don't remember.
Okay.
I
I'm
think David wanted to bring his own team, and then he mentioned to Gerald about, would you want to bring anybody? And Gerald's like, I don't think so, but can I pick my own people? And he was like, no, we already have a team. I wouldn't want you picking new people. I'd want you to pick from who you already have. And so kind of that from what I remember, that's what it was. David had his own team he wanted to bring. Gerald didn't want to bring his own team, but he wanted to pick new people to bring.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. My work experience is kind of all over the place, so I feel like industry human capital is something that I think is really important because well, I guess especially if you want to stay in the industry that you're in. I've been in interior design, I've been in property management, and all these things that don't mesh, and so it's really hard. I feel like I'm starting over every time, trying to learn the industry, and so I feel like that's something that if you have it and it's an industry you want to stay in, then that's really valuable because it's something you can take from job to job within the industry.
Yeah, one of the things that my older brother, he has no formal education. Everything he's really learned is self-taught. But what he did when he was 19, and this was some 30 years ago, he took just a basic electrical trade course, some dealie, at a trade school for like 6 months, and then he expanded on it from there. So I see your need, or I see the need for an industry human capital, because he's been able to build a successful big business with just that 6 months of basic electrical engineering knowledge, and with that he's been able to get several contracts and basically self-teach himself from there. And he was actually even able to teach me, because when I was 15, I did my apprenticeship as a plumber underneath him. So it was weird, kind of like, he was blind at first, he learned it, and now he's teaching me who's blind. So very useful, especially in today's age where we're constantly, where nothing's really permanent, but as long as you understand the basics to certain industries, you'll be okay. So
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, in my personal experiences, so I work in emergency medical services. So I work with fire departments, and I work on an ambulance. And kind of to relate that towards what we're talking about. So, human capital wise, the ambulance company I work for and fire departments have a really high tendency to hire from within, to promote people to manager positions and stuff like that. And it's people get very resentful when they hire from outside sources. Although I've seen it kind of as a detriment, because I feel like they haven't considered a lot of top candidates for my direct supervisor, because they are focusing too much on company specific human capital, people who have inside knowledge of what we're doing and stuff like that. So yeah, they know a lot, but they're not necessarily really good people managers. They don't have that overt skill of just taking control of a group and how to handle people and do that sort of stuff, or build new relationships and stuff like that. So I've seen it detrimental to where I work, where people who seem like they're qualified end up not being qualified in the end. They just happen to have a good knowledge of how things run on the ambulance, and so it's kind of been hurting us around here. And I think if they considered some outside sources, some people who are very successful but just in a different area or region, and brought them in, and then they could establish that same mentality where they were successful there, they can bring that success here, sort of thing.
That's such a good example.
So, I mean, I'm still in favor of hiring somebody from within, just because they do have that inside knowledge, they do have that reputation with their coworkers and stuff like that. It's just you can't just focus on just one of those human capitals. You kind of gotta max out as many of those categories as you can.
I think that's it from me.
yeah,
Yeah, me too.
me too.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for leading.
Yep.
Do we know who's leading next week?
I think it's me.
Good luck.
It's Kaylee.
Thanks.
I'm
All
sure
right.
to be argumentative and detrimental to the discussion. So, anyways, all right. Yeah, so when you just hit stop, you'll get a link under YouTube. Just email the teacher that and post it in the discussion boards. I think that's all we got to do, right? And then the reading discussion, that's it. Yeah, it will be. When you hit stop broadcasting or whatever, go to YouTube and you'll see the link. Go under your profile, and it'll be like recently streamed or whatever. When you click on that, you can click share, and it'll generate a link, a YouTube specific link. Yeah.
Good to know.
Alrighty. I shall talk to you guys later. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
Like,